it's week 7. John, I actually had to check the title to make sure week 7 was right because I feel like we are blistering through the high school football season.
Yeah, there are teams with six games played. Okay.
Yeah, some of them, not all of them. Most of them actually haven't, but some of them have. And we're week 7 of the high school football season. And now really, John, I mean, the push to the playoffs really starts, right? Whether you're going for your region title, whether you're going for district playoffs, things are heating up, and this is really make or break week as we move down the stretch.
Well, remember, there's only so many spots for these teams, whether, throughout the classifications, some with more than others. Obviously, 5A, you just have Cathedral Prep. 6A, you just have McDowell, Erie High. Well, Butler, for that matter, too.
Yeah.
But for some of the teams in the lower classifications, you got to get all the style points you can against the key matchups and the key wins, whether it's in region, out of region. So this is, really these last 3 weeks, because three weeks from tonight, on the 29th, could be the first start for classes 1A, 2A, and 4A, I believe. Their playoffs begin on that weekend. So just a few more chances to impress the District 10 committee.
Yeah, hard to believe we're already that close to postseason as we look at our first matchups for week number 7. McDowell gets another home game. I think if I looked at their schedule correctly, this is the second of 4 consecutive home games for the Trojans. If they don't play next week, which would also be a home game. McDowell looking for a team to play next week at home. So they're in the midst of a good stretch at Gus Anderson Field. Off of a win against Prep, they take on Hollidaysburg. We also have Mercyhurst Prep back at home after a nice win against Northeast. They will play Pymatuning Valley. Also in Region 4, Fairview Northeast. John, the Tigers have struggled the last 2 weeks. There's no way around it, getting pummeled last week at Fort LaBeouf. Mark Sobolewski's team looking for a rebound on the road.
Well, the big thing is going to be the question of their offensive stars, and Jared Januso and Tyler Corbin, both of which left with injuries last week against Fort LaBeouf, which played a big factor in their second consecutive defeat. You could just tell they didn't have the same energy on the offensive side of the ball. So that'll be the big question mark there. Meanwhile, Northeast trying to find a little rhythm as they get going here tonight at home.
Region 5, Harbor Creek getting their homecoming game against General McLean. Boy, the Huskies just looking for a win. They haven't won since week number 1. General McLean going for 3 in a row. A big game for GM, but the Huskies, man, again, we say every week it seemed like they started the season off so well with that opening week win, and since then just haven't found their offensive rhythm.
Yeah, they really, you take a look at that week 1, what was the big factor in all of that? It was the run game, and Cam Williamson leading the way. Since then, they've dealt with injuries and some absences from some other players on the offensive side of the ball, and when you have guys coming in and out of the lineup, that is the nature of football, unfortunately, but that can play a factor, and for a team that was ushering in a new core per se, it's taken its toll on this Harbor Creek Husky team so far this year.
Yeah, last year's 2020 region champs will not be the region champs here in 2021. Okay, game of the week is the second game on this graphic. Northwestern and Eisenhower. We show you Northwestern in week 2 when they took on Maplewood in what we thought might be a de facto region title game. Wildcats shut out the Tigers in that game. Now this one could be not a de facto region title game, but a gigantic game in playoff classification and in region perspective. The Wildcats undefeated, the Knights once beaten, but they're coming off a shutout win against Cambridge Springs. As much as we talk about Ryan Toole, this is a game of defense.
Yeah, it really is. Both of these teams, you think about where they play on some of those grass fields, they love to dig in and they love to shut you down and try to force you to do things that you don't necessarily like to do, and that's where it'll come down tonight to see which team can outmatch the opponent and find those holes in the defense.
Yeah, both coaches were very upfront. Jim Penley saying, listen, Northwestern can beat you offensively different ways. Mark Brooks said, listen, if we get too mudded down with our offense, we are going to get stopped and quickly. A couple of quick stats for you defensively. Eisenhower allowing just 18.5 points per game. That's one of the best in Region 2. The best belongs to Northwestern. They're giving up, get this, 4.5 points per game. They've given up 18 all year. 12 of them came last week in a victory for the Wildcats, but that will be our game of the week. Other games as well. In Region 5, Meadville will host Franklin. John, I would argue, besides McDowell, the Bulldogs are the hottest team in the area. Erie, Crawford, or Warren County.
Yeah, they certainly are. And you take a look, they get a win tonight against a Franklin team that just got its first win a couple of weeks ago. They've pretty much solidified the Region 5 title. They'd have one more region game left. I believe that would be, no, they already played Harbor Creek. The name of that team is avoiding me right now as I'm running through the list.
Oil City, potentially?
No, they played Oil City, I think, last week. But nonetheless, Meadville would pretty much be in the driver's seat. Tonight they would earn at least a share of the region title. General McLean, they had already beaten the team with the one loss right behind them. So Meadville can do that tonight, and really they have just found ways to get the ball. Brady Walker, a big one, and they've capitalized and created turnovers, which can always be the big momentum shifter.
It's one of the best defenses also in District 10 as well. Also want to mention, too, for playoff implications to impress the PIAA, Meadville still has Cathedral Prep at home, I believe, in week number 9, 2 weeks from today. So that will be a gigantic game for the Bulldogs for playoff implications. Oil City in Warren for Region 5 as well. The Oilers and Dragons trying to rebound. Warren's had a tough couple of weeks. They lost last week at General McLean close, 34-31, after getting blown the doors off by Meadville at home 2 weeks ago. And then in Region 4, Fort LaBeouf, they are steamrolling through everybody, and they play a winless Girard team tonight.
Yeah, I mean, this Fort LaBeouf team, it's just amazing to watch that machine that is their run game. I mean, and as much as it is the runners, it's that offensive line that gets the push. You know, we're not talking about guys that are standing in the NFL and Division I offensive linemen. These guys just have an intensity about them that they want to get off the ball. They're creating holes, and then the running backs are feeding off that and finding their way to the end zone.
It's amazing, too, how much Fort LaBeouf's running backs also act as blockers when they don't get the ball. If it's not Tristan Harris, it's Justin Lucian. Lucian's getting the carry, Harris is making the blocks, and vice versa. So Jeff Nichols' squad rolling here as we get into Week 7. They'll look to stay undefeated tonight. Sagertown hosting Seneca as the Panthers coming off of a couple of challenging games. They'll take on the Bobcats. We have Cambridge Springs at Maplewood. That could be a sneaky good game. Boy, since the Tigers have lost to Northwestern, they have been rolling. I believe they've only lost one other game besides that. And head coach Brian Borkovich really getting his team under control here at the latter half of the season.
Well, and they do so on a 3-1 stretch here in the midst of a couple of canceled games, games called off, having to add, adjust to new opponents. So, yeah, they've really found kind of a rhythm. I saw them last week when they took on Seneca. They had the ability to just control on the ground, throw the ball when they needed to, and really just control the clock. That's what Maplewood likes to do when they can have those long drives, methodically move down the field, and they've done that over the last stretch, and the results have followed.
Quarterback Hunter Hallman and the Grove City Eagles will visit Titusville tonight. Cathedral Prep also at Benedictine. Boy, the Ramblers looking to rebound after what was their worst performance of the season in the 31-12 loss to McDowell last week. How do you see the Ramblers getting back on track tonight?
Well, it's not going to be an easy test tonight because Benedictine comes in, or will hope be at home at 6-0. They're one of the top-ranked teams in Ohio, so they're not going to have an easy test tonight. And like we said last week, with Michael Parks, a smaller back, you and Jovan talked about it specifically, running between the tackles is going to be hard. I think it's going to be hard again tonight. I'm still putting the onus on Carter Barnes having his best game of the season. He's going to have to come up with those smart decisions, something that avoided him a week ago. Yeah, he
has to have a bounce-back game for Cathedral Prep to avoid a 2-game losing skid. All right. Other games that we have this weekend and tonight, Butler Golden Tornado hosting Westinghouse. That will not be a region game. Westinghouse coming from out of town. Greenville and Reynolds kick off our Region 1 slate. The big game out in Mercer County, a game that is always exciting and dynamic and high-scoring. It's Farrell at Wilmington. John, I got to ask you, is there any chance the Greyhounds can pull off an upset tonight?
Listen, I don't think so. Yeah. I was going to try and make something about a Greyhound bus, but I analogy there. But yeah, I think the bus will be parked in its spot. Yeah. The Steelers are just so. I mean, both of these teams have speed and skill to work with, but I just think Farrell right now is rolling on all cylinders, and barring something shocking tonight, I think this is Farrell's game all the way.
Farrell averaging over 60 points a game, and when talking with Mark Brooks a little bit earlier for Game of the Week, that's the team he's worried about playing when we get to the PIAA district playoffs. Again, that was a game I believe that happened last year for the Wildcats. They were unbeaten until then Farrell came in and took out the Wildcats.
Yeah, that was the district championship game in the 2A classification last year. So, again, that's going to be a team that they're going to be looking down the road that you're going to have to go through if you want to win a District 10 championship.
And then Mercer hosting Lakeview as well as we continue through our Friday slate. How about some more games for you? Hickory visiting Slippery Rock. Keep an eye on the Rockets up in Region 3. They've really played well. They got a big win a couple of weeks ago when they beat Fairview. Then they continue their stretch as well. A tough test tonight against Hickory. But Slippery Rock, if they keep going, their matchup next week against Sharon really could be for that region title.
Well, you're looking right now, too. Hickory's right there in that region race as well. As the standings shape up, it's those three right at the top. Slippery Rock holding that top spot, undefeated on the year. I mean, we're talking about a fantastic job down at Slippery Rock. This one, I think, is the sneaky game of the night. I just think that you could see a really close game that comes down to the wire. They've had a couple of close contests in the past, so it should be a fun one to watch. And that's our final Friday game as we take a look.
Yes.
Down there.
And then also, too, keep in mind, we have not set a game of the week yet, and we don't know if we will travel to Slippery Rock. But, boy, if the Rockets and Tigers win tonight, that could potentially be out in Region 3. But we're not foreshadowing anything. We're on Week 7 right now. And tomorrow, as John mentioned, 3 games. Sharpsville at Kennedy Catholic in Region number 1, then Erie on the road traveling to face St. Francis, a team that Cathedral Prep, I believe, played, or am I thinking 2 weeks ago they played at home. The Ramblers did get the win there. Then Cochranton at Iroquois. You know, the Cardinals, I think they've been the surprise story of the season. A new head coach coming in. This is a team that really didn't know how many players they were going to have coming into the summer, and now they're undefeated and tied with Northwestern at the top of Region 2. They visit Iroquois, who will play on their new home turf for the first time tomorrow night. A lot of storylines for this game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the atmosphere is like at John L. Post Stadium. I believe senior night as well. So they're going to have an opportunity there to celebrate. But yeah, Mike Filippa and company down there in Cochranton, what they've been able to do to find ability to create on offense. And he said, when I talked to him in the preseason, he said it's about creating a change of culture and consistency. Those were the two big things, because he said, I'm the third head coach in 3 seasons.
Yeah.
He goes, so he wanted to prove to these guys, hey, he's all in, and they have since responded to him saying, hey, Coach, we're right there with you.
Got a feeling he probably will have a second year as a head coach, no matter what happens at the end of this year, as Cochranton comes in undefeated. Also want to mention, too, one of the things that Mark Brooks told me with Northwestern in our game of the week. I'm going to throw this out there. He wants to play Cochranton. Remember, those two teams had a game scheduled for week number 4 that was canceled because of COVID issues with Northwestern. So now there's not many weeks left in the season, but will Cochranton and Northwestern get to play? Big question, but it would be a fun matchup if that is the case. All right, John, matchups that you're looking out for here. I guess we'll start with game of the week and your thoughts for the key in Northwestern and Eisenhower. I mean, what do you look for? Clearly, Ryan Toole for the Wildcats. That defense of Jim Penley's is also stout as well. What do you see playing out tonight?
Well, I think Eisenhower's defense is obviously very successful, as is Northwestern's. I think the mismatch comes tonight in the passing game for Northwestern. Ryan Toole and Eric Steinley have been two of the big names that have really led. And I think, it's interesting. You look at the first couple of weeks for Northwestern, and it was all about that ground game. But Ryan Toole and Steinley have created that connection that has allowed something. I just think that's the mismatch here for Eisenhower. I'm looking at something like a 28-14 game. I think that even may be high scoring, but I could see Northwestern taking advantage through the air.
I think the key for the Wildcats will be setting up that play-action passing game. A lot of their work in practice when I was there was that run down the middle, and then create the mismatch via the play-action. We'll see if they use that tonight. I'll save my prediction for a little bit later on. Jovan Johnson not joining us tonight. He's in Iowa for the honorary captain for the Iowa-Penn State game. Other games that you're looking at here, John, I know we talked about one slide over, maybe 2 slides over, that the Hickory versus Slippery Rock game. It's over one more. There it is, Hickory Slippery Rock.
Yeah, I like that game a lot. I think there's two fast-paced offenses that have found an ability to score consistently throughout the year, so I'll be looking forward to that game. In terms of other games, I think Mercer County's dominating in terms of the top matchups tonight. Then you go to Warren County. Fort LaBeouf, if they can continue their role, I think it'll be interesting. Again, they want to make sure it's not at this point about. Well, it's about the record. You never want to say it's not about the record.
Want to be undefeated.
But are they playing tough enough and strong enough to go compete with the Mercer County teams? Because we saw it a year ago when they played Grove City in the playoffs. Didn't match up. They already beat Grove City this year. But again, they need to be making sure that everything is solidified going into the playoffs. So that's where they're looking at tonight as they take on Girard.
And a question, too, for teams like LaBeouf that have led all season. The question is, what do you do when you're behind, especially for a run-heavy LaBeouf team? We haven't really seen the quarterback department have to throw the ball much. Jeff Nichols, of course, hone on the run, so we'll see if they ever get that test for the rest of the season for the Bison with arguably their toughest games behind them. I'm going to make one quick prediction for tomorrow night. I'm going to call an upset at John L. Post Stadium. I'm going to take Iroquois to beat Cochranton tomorrow. Wow. Mike Filippa's squad has been incredibly on par. Again, coming in with one of the best defenses in Region 2 with Northwestern and Eisenhower. But something about that new turf on a Saturday night, you get the prime slot by yourself if you're Iroquois coming in on your home field on senior night. I think the Braves really have a chance, and I think they will spring the upset on Cochranton tomorrow.
That's an interesting pick. I don't know. I can't bet against Mike Filippa and the Fighting Cardinals right now. They've been too hot, and despite some of the weeks off because they're only playing region games with the lower numbers, I think they get a W in that one.
I think at least one undefeated team will go down. Maybe it's Slippery Rock at Hickory. But regardless, it's going to be a fun Week 7. I mean, final thoughts. We're rolling through towards the playoffs here because they start in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited. You think about how for the sports nerds and us that are, when you start looking at the standings and how, matchups could play, what the District 10 committee is thinking about in terms of playoff matchup. It just gets exciting. It's like bracketology for the NCAA tournament when it comes out. You sit there and you look at it and you're like, all right, this is going to be fun. And then you see the games play out. I'm just excited for these next couple of weeks to see how teams shape up.
I like that idea. I think we should do a bracketology, too, before playoffs. What do you guys think? Should we do a bracketology? Let us know in the comments. We're nerds. We understand. But still, it's fun. It's Friday. It's football. It's Week 7. And we're going to be all around the region tonight. Football Friday. A short and condensed version at 10 o'clock, then 11, the big show. We've got all your highlights, over 12 minutes of sports coverage as we get set for the Week 7 of the high school football season. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your football. Enjoy Week 7. We'll see you here.